Welcome, everybody. This is Mankaval Sachdev. I'm your host for the Interventional Endoscopist podcast. And today I am doing another interview. And I have the pleasure and the honor to introduce Dr. G.S. Raju out of MD Anderson, Houston, to the audience. Dr. Raju, I met him for the first time when I was a medical resident. He was walking through I believe it was ACG. I was there with my mentor, VK Sharma. We were presenting a poster, and I was just standing there, and he stopped by, and we had a conversation. And then periodically throughout my career, I've met him at different conferences and had the opportunity to be taught by him at the video GIE course when I was just about to enter my therapeutic endoscopy year. So that's how I know him. The reason that I wanted to talk to him today was I wanted to talk to him a little bit about this new course that he's developed that helps train endo technicians. And so before we get into that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Raju to everybody here, and here he is on the screen. So Dr. Raju, welcome.
Thank you, Mankaval. It's good to see you. First of all, I want to congratulate you for doing this podcast.
Thank you.
As physicians, we keep focusing on taking care of patients, but there are so many other things we can do for fun and to keep us from burning out.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of the motivations of me doing this as well. So, but before we start talking about the program, can we get a little bit about your background, a little bit about where you grew up, how you ended up as a physician, how you ended up in the U.S., maybe just kind of give us a very brief kind of overview of what made Dr. Raju who he is today.
I don't know about that, but I'll tell you. I was born in India, South India, in the fertile districts of Godavari Basin on the East Coast. And I come from a family of physicians. I'm a third-generation physician. And I grew up, I am named after my grandfather, who was the first batch student of my medical college, Andhra Medical College. And after doing my med school, I went to Chandigarh, that is PGI Chandigarh, one of the great institutions for training for young medical professionals located in the North India, and where I had probably the best training that I could think about, and meeting so many brilliant people there. And following my medicine training, I came down to Delhi to do my gastroenterology training at GB Pant Hospital as part of the Delhi University. And that was in 1989. And from the beginning, I wanted to pursue a career in academic medicine. And at that time, there were not many opportunities for an academic job. You have to go through a state exam, and unless you do that, you're not going to get a job. So right around that time, my mentor, Dr. Bhupinder Singh Anand, he was my mentor. He trained in Oxford. He did his DPhil from Oxford. And he was very kind to write a letter of reference to Dr. Karnadev Baradan, Dr. Chindu Baradan. He's known as Chindu Baradan. So, and that opportunity gave me the opportunity to go to England and work with Dr. Baradan. Dr. Baradan is probably one of the finest gastroenterologists, researchers, and human being that you can meet. And he was a Rhodes Scholar from India. And he worked in a very small district general hospital, but he was a passionate researcher in a district hospital. He probably trained more than a dozen PhDs from a district general hospital. And he was the first one to do the cimetidine trial for peptic ulcer. And then all the work that we think about, all the PPIs and everything that we know about now, came from his place, Rotherham District General Hospital. So I worked with him for 2 years as a registrar and then research registrar. And that's where I think I learned how to think outside the box.
Right.
Sometimes when you see a mentor, uh, he influences you, and he made a huge influence on my life. Unfortunately, he passed away just last month. Uh, Something, I wish people had an opportunity to meet him. He was one of the first physicians of Indian origin to be recognized by the Queen with the Order of the British Empire. So, amazing personality. So then, in England, it's not easy to find a job in a major London hospital, uh, despite doing your membership. So I decided to come to this country, and Dr. Baradan was kind enough to write a beautiful letter that actually opened my path to the Cleveland Clinic. So that's where I did my training, and clinic was very kind to me. It did not ask me to do 3 years, so I was able to finish in 2 years, right? And then I was also lucky enough to be the last batch of GIs who could finish their GI training in 2 years instead of so. So that's I went to University of Iowa where I trained, and then I said to myself, I came here thinking that I'll become a liver transplant guy.
Okay.
But along the way, I think I said to myself, I'm not the best fit for that job. So I decided to do therapeutic endoscopy at Beth Israel.
Right.
My mentors were Ram Chutani and Irving Waxman.
Right.
And then later on, Dr. Doug Plesko. So it was a journey. And then it's interesting, right? I finished when there were not many jobs in 1998. When you look in the New England Journal, not many jobs. That was the time when Bill Clinton decided to make everybody as a primary care physician. So everybody wanted to become a primary care physician, and subspecialists were worried about recruiting anybody.
Yeah.
I came to this country with only one goal, that is to be in academic medicine. That's I don't think I would be a fit in any other type of practice. So I was fortunate enough to be recruited by Dr. Richard McCallum, uh, the one who's very well known for gastroparesis work and gastric pacing.
He spent some time in New Orleans. Yeah.
Yes. And he was kind enough to recruit me to Kansas. And that's where I started my career as a young faculty member.
Right.
So in Kansas, it was a lot of clinical work. Sometimes it's good to do a lot of clinical work after you finish your training so that you feel confident about yourself with your skill set. And I was missing academic work because when you're doing too much clinical work, you don't have time to do academic work. So around that time, Jay Pashrika or Pankaj Jay Pashrika uh, offered me a job in Galveston, UTMB, and I moved to Texas in 2001. And I really had a fun time in Galveston, And Jay was kind enough to mentor me, given his background in research. Jay has done a lot of work in achalasia, right, from Botox to POEM, all that great work. And he mentored me, and we had fun. Most of the work we done in Galveston was how to close perforations, all the basic experimental work.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had a lot of fun in Galveston because it gave me a lot of freedom to do work in addition to clinical work. And I was very fortunate to meet Peter Kelsey and Brenna Baum. We started the video editing scholarship program. You're part of that.
Yeah. No, benefited from it big time. So
it was fun. It was fun to do that, and then that translated into the video GIE later on.
right.
And then life is very interesting. I'm hearing about your family and the effects of partition, of Indian partition, how families, suddenly one day everything is going well, and another day you are up and about and starting a life, new life. So for me, that was Hurricane Ike.
Right.
When Hurricane Ike came to Galveston, Galveston was underwater, almost 6 feet. Hospital was submerged underwater with at least 6 feet of water in the ground floor.
Hmm.
One day I was scoping, next day no work. So
Yeah.
you understand how life takes
Yeah.
its time.
Yeah.
So then I moved to MD Anderson. I think Dr. Mendelson and Dr. John Stroline was the chief. Dr. Mendelson was the president. And Dr. Mendelson was very kind to recruit a lot of people from Galveston because Galveston was not doing well. So they had to let go a lot of people.
Right.
And Dr. Mendelson was kind enough to recruit. I'm one of those beneficiaries. It's interesting to see this journey, and I've been at Anderson for now 14 years, since 2009. It's when you think about it, I think it's very important to keep in mind. In life, we are all given a set of cards to play with,
Right.
and God gives you a set of cards, and then He watches. How do you play with those cards? And at different points, you may have to reinvent yourself to survive, or to have a meaningful to spend your time meaningfully. So at Anderson, I started the colon polyp resection program, and on the side, I was doing other projects. So that's my story. It's a
That's
long
great.
story.
No, it's a great story. I mean, it's, the perseverance that, to go from, it's hard to move from cities, but to, leave part of your family behind to go to another country, and then, having your family move with you as well. Those things, I think it highlights perseverance, but it also highlights support, that you have a steady support system that had helped you do that, in the sense that, people were backing, family and everything like that. So that's always really important. I think that's just very admirable. So
Yeah, I think I want to mention here, I was married when I was in my third year medical school. So my
really,
wife put up with me for, I don't know, for nearly 40 years.
oh my God,
Crazy journey.
yeah, yeah, no, that's if I was my 30, I would have been 22. That was probably, yeah. I mean, we did a few years, but yeah. Okay, so let's dive into the program, the Endotech training program. I think I'll let you talk about it, but what I understood is that this came from a need, and I think COVID for us in Arizona really highlighted this need, and we got an opportunity to speak about it last year at DDW. But one things we faced was when we try to hire endo technicians, their salaries aren't the greatest, and they're not certified. And surgical technicians who come to endo can make $4 or $5, sometimes even $10 more an hour, at least in our area. And I've had endo techs legitimately quit because they made more money and better benefits working at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. And we lose good people all the time. So keeping and retaining technicians was always a problem. And then I heard about this program that you developed with your team. So just please go ahead and dive into it.
So I think I want to take one step back.
Okay.
That is 1986. After I finished my medicine training in PGI, I worked with a gentleman by name Jung Delavery. He worked at Central Middlesex with Dr. Peter Cotton, and then he returned to India. He was the first one to do ERCP, sphincterotomy, and stone extraction in India.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So a lot of us were excited to work with him. So I started my 1 year of what we call registrar job with him before I went and did my GI training in Delhi. So it's interesting. He taught me basics of endoscopy. And before he taught me basics of endoscopy, he asked his assistant, the head assistant or a head technician, that you call. He told me, Raju, you're going to spend time with him and you're going to clean about 10 scopes. And once he says yes, then I let you hold the scope. So I still remember that is Mr. Hakikat Singh. And Hakikat Singh showed me how to clean the scope. And you will be surprised to know this. At that time, we used to take the needle catheters, that injection needle, cut the needle, and then put it into the plastic catheter, put glue, and seal it, and create our own injection catheters. So, right nowadays, everything comes ready-made.
Yeah.
You're in injection catheters.
Yeah.
So I appreciated the importance of a technician, the role of a technician, and the need for having a good technician or an assistant to do the procedures well. And when I first joined Kansas, it's one thing that we don't realize throughout our careers, as we become from medicine to gastroenterology and learning endoscopy, we may forget this, but it's important to appreciate when we are making those baby steps. It is not just our endoscopy mentor who's teaching, but the senior technician in the lab is also helping us to learn. You may have noticed that. They actually they help you learn, but they also help, I think, protect you without your knowledge from the onslaught of your boss.
I actually tell my therapeutic fellows that when you get the scope taken away, your job is to hang out with the technician, watch what I'm doing, but watch what they're doing, learn what they're doing, because wherever you go, you may have to teach somebody how to do a stent deployment or something along those lines. So I actually make them spend a little bit of time with the technician at the beginning of their fellowship. So because they have so much to teach them and to learn from them.
Yes, for sure. And so when I first joined my job in Kansas, interesting thing happened. When I first joined, I joined as fresh out of fellowship. Although this is not my first fellowship, it's third fellowship. All the endoscopy staff at KU left. Except for one nurse and one technician, everybody left.
Wow.
So I had to hire nurses and I had to hire technicians and train them from scratch.
Okay.
So that was a very interesting experience, right? And I had to bring them into my room, make sure that they have learned the skills before they were allowed to work with anybody, because otherwise you have so much of turnover. And I had no turnover. But I also wondered, right? Why is that when you are working in a university center, sometimes patients get referred to you, and then your fellow actually is able to take care of the patient under your supervision. And the patient actually came from a very well-trained gastroenterologist, right? I just wonder, why is that, right? I never thought about that, but I wondered, why is that? You could have taken care of it. Why did the patient come here and the third-year fellow or the advanced fellow was able to do the procedure, right? And my eye-opening experience was after Ike, we started practicing in a community hospital on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And the community hospital did not allow the UTMB nurses and technicians to come and work there. We had to work with the community hospital team.
Right.
And that's when I realized the support structure is not the best.
Absolutely.
When you have the best technician, you don't feel comfortable with cutting polyps or doing anything. And that stayed with me. And but I didn't pursue that. I moved to Anderson, and then I was struggling to get myself settled down and start the work. And then in 2015, I suddenly wrote a letter to the chancellor of Houston Community Colleges, Dr. Cesar Maldonado, on a weekend from my Gmail account. And my pitch was, surgeons operate in the operating room, and they don't operate without a trained surgical tech. Surgical techs go through 2 years of training.
Right.
And in the last 30, 40 years, endoscopy replaced surgery, whether it's bleeding control, stone removal, polyp removal, whatever. I gave him examples. And I said, we don't have technicians that go through formal training. They learn on the job. And how about starting a program? And I didn't know Dr. Maldonado, and he didn't know me. And it's interesting. I sent an email not from my MD Anderson email account. I sent him from my Gmail account.
Right.
And I've sent so many emails to so many people, whether it's a UT or Rice University faculty, pitching ideas, but didn't have much luck. But this one, the email came back within 48 hours.
Yeah.
And he said, I recruited Dr. Phil Nicotera to the Houston Community College in the medical center. Let me introduce you to him.
Okay.
So that was very kind that he responded, right?
Right, absolutely.
You can pitch, but doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, when they get the random Gmail account, they're thinking it's a prince from Nigeria trying to offer you a bank account full of $1 million, right? So
yeah, it's true. It's true. So I actually did not know in the medical center where the community college was located. So we are no more different from the Pavlovian dogs. We get up, we get into the car, go to the hospital, do the cases, and then go home.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to look in the map and figure out where the place was, and then I walked to the community college. I think it's sometime in May or June, hot summer, and I met Dr. Nicotera, and Dr. Nicotera, he is probably one of the best people I worked with. Interesting thing is, he was a pediatrician by training and practiced pediatrics for a long time, and then developed his interest in education, and he became the president of a community college.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So it's very easy to discuss with him,
Right. You can speak the same language on many.
Right. And you can feel the pain.
Right.
So I told Dr. Nicotera that around that time I was working on the video GIE, so I could show him, hey, this is some of the work we have done, and so that he takes me a little more seriously. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I actually left him with one thing. I said, I want you to do your own research. And if you think it is worthwhile, we are here to work together and make it possible, right? So Dr. Nicotera, I think he took me a little bit seriously, and he went out and reached out to all the nurse managers in the medical center. And they all said, we want a trained technician yesterday. Because that one of the biggest things, or one of the things that a nurse manager worries about is when a technician comes and knocks at their door and says, I'm leaving, they cannot replace.
Right. It takes forever.
Unless you snatch somebody for a higher amount of money from your adjacent hospital, you cannot replace. There's no pipeline. So I think I give all credit to Dr. Nicotera, because, with the blessings of Dr. Maldonado, the chancellor of the community college, they said, hey, let us start an advisory group.
Okay.
We started as an advisory group, and then I reached out to all the endoscopists in the medical center and all the nurses and technicians in the medical center, and said, let us start an advisory group. But if you go to a community college and you say that you want to start a brand new program, right? There's no program like that. Or there was a couple of programs, one on the East Coast and maybe one somewhere else, and they tried to reach out and they did not respond.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't respond. Even community college president's office reached out, they didn't respond. So when you don't have access to anything else, what community colleges do is they do what is called day camp. development of a curriculum.
Okay.
And that's a project they have to do. And what is they come? So what they did was they brought 10 technicians from 5 different facilities in the medical center, 2 from each, right?
Mhm.
MD Anderson to Methodist, Memorial Hermann, HCA hospitals, and then some ambulatory surgical centers, 10 technicians.
Okay.
And they assigned 2 of their educators from the community college, right? One is an associate dean and the other one was running the program. And
Mhm.
what they said was they met for 16 hours for 2 days. And they said, please tell us, what do you do from the time you clock in to clock out?
Okay.
So they kept writing everything, right? They say, we come in, we set the scope, right? Or we clean the scope, or we do this, or electrosurgery, or infection control. Everything that the technician does, they started noting down. And after 2 days, they said, we are surprised that there is no training program.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And they were actually shocked. And they sent that whole material as a report to the community college president. And the president said, hey, I think this is something we should do. So we started this advisory group. And, it's very hard for endoscopists who are working, long hours to take time off, right? And
Right.
go to the community college for an hour to hour and a half to be part of this advisory group to come up and develop a program from scratch. And what we did was we said, let us have an advisory group of endoscopists, nurses, technicians, and industry partners.
Right.
So we wanted everybody to be part of that, along with the community college leadership.
Right.
And several people helped from my own unit. Sophia, she was one of the assistant nurse managers. Laura, she was the senior head tech. Lieben, one of the other senior techs at that time. And manager at that time was Marcella. So we all jumped into the car and went once a month to that meeting. And you may remember Cal Patel from Baylor.
Yep. Yep.
And Cal was probably one of the best educators you can find. He came, and Tom Slocum from Boston Scientific. We started, and then a lot of others have joined along the way, and we met.
Right.
And we were not sure, how to develop a program. We think we're educators, right? When we give a talk at a meeting, but education is a lot more than that,
Yeah.
So we futzed around, and I don't think community college took us seriously because for them it's a big investment. So,
Right. Yeah.
so we met for almost a year and a half before we finalized that we will do you have to do either 1 year or 2 years. We decided on 1 year because we're starting from scratch. And then we decided that we're going to have the classes in the evenings so that people can work during the day.
Right.
So Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays for 4 hours they meet. And then we said they'll have training, simulation training in the community college and internships in the hospitals. So we came up with a 35 credit hour material.
Okay.
About 19 credits for just endoscopy based, infection control, technology, various procedures.
Right.
And our goal was, by the time one finishes off, they should be good enough to assist in basic endoscopy in your day-to-day practice in an ambulatory surgical center or in a hospital, and maybe have some skills in terms of ERCP, stone removal, or stent placement,
Right.
or US with FNA. So that's where we stopped. We cannot expand to all the subspecialists
Right.
of endoscopy, right?
Oh yeah, now especially with all the other procedures that we're doing, third space and
Right,
bariatrics
right,
and
right. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we thought that the entry point will be a high school graduate,
okay.
who has a 2.5 grade point average. That's good enough to start the program.
Right.
And so the problem came was the community college has no experience with endoscopy tech training material development, right? They don't have a clue, right? They don't.
Right.
So I was I was going through this, and by this time I've been working with a medical illustrator. Her name is Angela Deal. So you may have seen a lot of her illustrations. She used to be on faculty at UT Southwestern, and during the financial crisis, they closed down the medical illustration school.
Okay.
Angela is an amazing illustrator, one of the best people that I've worked with. I've been working with her, and around this time, Anderson was kind enough to give me the John Stroline endowed professorship, and Mr. Charles Butt. He has a big, the HEB, which is a big, uh, you know, um, uh, store. This is a a grocery store chain.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah. I think
Right.
I've
So
seen
he
that
has
organization.
given
Yeah.
me a huge grant. So those grants have actually helped me to develop the uh, learning material. And I was struggling because, to me, we can create material, but to create learning objectives, then learning material, then testing,
Right.
there is an art to it. You have to have an educator who can do that. We are not trained for that,
Right. Right.
right? So my good friend, Suresh Chari from Mayo.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Suresh was 2 years senior to me at PGI, and I always looked up to him. And I met Suresh in Milan at the UEGW or whatever, that European meeting.
Okay.
And I was just telling him this what I was doing. We share, what was happening in our lives, and I shared. He said, "I have somebody for you," and he said, "Okay, you need an educator. I have somebody for you." So, and he told me about Sanji Suresh, his daughter.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. Sanji is graduated from WashU, and she's a passionate teacher. And when I say passionate, I've seen very few people who are that passionate about community service. So Sanji took 2 years after college and worked for Teach for America, right? Teach for America, right? You can
Okay.
volunteer for 2 years. And she taught math and science for the inner city schools of St. Louis,
Okay.
right? And she uh, prior to that, she taught the kids in the slums of Delhi and as well as in Sri Lanka. She has the passion for teaching and batting for the underprivileged. And I've never seen somebody like that. So she's also done her master's in education. And so I actually reached out to Sanji, and I told Sanji, "Hey, Sanji, I hope you can join. And if you join, my goal is to create a material, and I want to make it available for free to the community college, right? Because she's also interested in serving, right?
Right. 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 Right.
So Sanjay came on board, and her goal was to work for 2 years and then go to medical school. So Sanjay, myself, and Angela, how we worked. It's very interesting how we worked the material. The number of times I met Sanjay I can count on couple of hands in 2 years, because the COVID came.
Right.
COVID
Yeah.
came, and then we are all over the place.
Yeah.
So we worked on Google Slides.
Okay.
All the material that we developed was the interaction on the Google Slides. Myself, Sanjay, and Angela, illustrator,
Yeah.
educator, and an endoscopist. So we created the whole material, 19 credit hour material. And, when you don't have time, you know how busy you are, it's, you don't have time. When COVID came, endoscopists have nothing to do. We're just twiddling our thumbs, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I spend a lot of time outside of my backyard that time. So,
yes. So we created the material, and then I said to myself, these are students who need help, and community college may not have an educator who can teach them. So I decided, given my background in video editing and creating a lot of videos, I created like 170 videos of everything that an endoscopy technician should learn.
oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So we gave that entire material to the community college. But I have to also share with you something. When you work for a university, whatever work you develop is not yours.
Right, it's theirs. Yeah.
It's the University of Texas owns that, right? And the leadership of MD Anderson, and that is Dr. Peter Pistos, the president, and the chief academic officer, that is Dr. Karen, I forgot her last name. The chief academic officer, and also Diane Badurka, she was also in charge of education. They actually gave the permission to give the material to the community college for free, because once you own this, and institutions want to
Yeah,
make money out of it.
absolutely.
So I think that's how we developed, but we couldn't start the program in 2020 because of the COVID. Hospitals did not allow anybody, so we started in 2021. And interestingly, many institutions in the medical center have signed contracts with the community college so that the students could come and do hands-on training.
Right.
So the first batch graduated 2021, and we actually recruited out of 12, 4 of them.
Wow.
Right. And in 2022, again, another batch graduated. So it's a very interesting journey, because I feel that when you go to the endoscopy unit, if you're working in a big center with multiple rooms, lots of endoscopy technicians,
Right.
Whenever I go to start my day, I'm looking into my room to see who my technician for that day. You're right. Either you have a great day, or you're going to have a tough day, depending on.
No, that's 100% true.
So I feel that, it's like I keep telling the students in the community college, this is what I tell them, that as a surgeon and a surgical tech is retracting and giving the instruments to the surgeon. Surgeon does the cut, surgeon does everything. But in endoscopy, the roles are reversed. You as an endoscopist take the device and they are doing the cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this journey, I mean, it's truly a labor of love, as they say. And I mean, it obviously several challenges, and pandemic being the biggest one. But what were was there any resistance that you faced along the way? I know that you mentioned you had a lot of support from the chief academic officer but what were some of the did you have any resistance from anybody, and not to name people, but just in general, were there any problems with that?
No, I think one thing is, if you think about it, like endoscopist, right? If you think about an endoscopist is different from a physician.
Yeah.
Endoscopists want to see the results immediately.
Right.
You want to cut the sphincter and see the stone out.
Right.
The physician is managing the blood pressure for several years. There's a difference in the mindset of a physician versus an endoscopist. Endoscopist is more like a surgeon.
Right.
He wants to see results immediately. So when you take up a project like this, I think you need to have a lot of patience.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And the second one is, when you take up a project, I'm taking up a project. I took up this project without somebody mandating that you should do it, right? And I have no clout with the community college. I'm just a foreigner there. You understand?
Right.
I'm not part of a community college, and it's important to really work with people and develop the trust, and make sure that you respect people for what they bring to the table, because everybody brings something different to the table. And you have to have patience, because when we went through this, community college cannot start a program unless whatever we as the advisory board developed and finalized, it has to go to the community college governing board.
Right.
They have to say yes, and then you have to go to Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. It's called SACS. Unless the SACS approves, community college in Texas and southern states cannot start a program.
Right.
It's not a program that is approved, right? And then you also have to get it approved by the Texas Board of Higher Education. So all these things take a long time. It's like from 2015 or 16 to 2021. It took about 6-7 years.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. And for your first two classes that have graduated, like you mentioned the first batch was 12. And did all 12 find employment?
Yes.
Really?
So,
And they're still sticking with it?
we had about 13 students join in the first batch.
Mhm.
One dropped off. I wish I'd known the reason. So if you think about it, in all of them, all students were working full time.
Right.
In the daytime, they were working, and in the evening, they were coming to the class twice a week, 4 hours, 4 hours.
Mhm.
And then when they have an internship, one day of the week for the first semester, 2 days of the week in the second semester, they're working in the hospitals.
Right.
All right. And the fee for community college for this program is about $4,000. And I've learned a lot by working with this program, because I also appreciated that how tough it is for a lot of people, because all of them applied for financial aid.
Right.
Right. We are so far removed from a lot of those things. I wish hospitals and big ambulatory surgical centers could put some resources into the community college so that education is easier on some people. I think it's important to keep that thing in mind.
Mhm.
And for somebody who can get that support for $4,000 and get an education, you are starting a career for somebody.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, we see examples of that locally here, where a couple of our hospital systems will pay for technicians to go to nursing school, for example.
Mhm.
But the requirement is that they'll pay for a certain percentage, or maybe even all of it, but then you have to work a certain number of years for the institution after you graduate. And I think if something is costing between $4,000 to $10,000, I mean, obviously we don't know what it would cost in different cities. I could see local hospitals, because they are so it's so difficult for them to recruit and retain
Right.
endoscopy technicians. I could see them paying for the full course for somebody, with the promise that that person would work for X number of years afterwards. And
Right.
and
Right.
I think that's the best kind of financial aid, especially if you enjoy working in that place. So
Right. Yeah. It's you asked about difficulties. I think when you start a program like this, obviously what happens is the people who come to the meetings on a regular basis have their heart
right,
in that. They're educators. They like to do other things. And for all the people, I give a lot of credit to Cal Patel from Baylor, and Tom Slocum, who was a Boston Scientific regional manager. He has actually, we had tough time to have funds to buy the equipment,
Right.
right? If you think about endoscopy equipment for a community college, it's $100,000. It's
Yeah,
not a lot of
absolutely.
money. So Tom was kind enough to bring a lot of expired items from different places and give it to the students, or give it to the school for them to practice. A lot of people have actually, others have also helped. And when you make it like a team effort, right, things work out.
Yeah.
Work out.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the motivation has to be there. And
Right.
obviously, you're doing it the first time, it's,
Right.
starting from scratch. I didn't realize all the little steps that have, as you hear about this, it's like, oh, I'll just go to my community college and say, let's start a course. It obviously doesn't work that way. So
Yeah.
that's
The thing is, if you say, like, say, for example, in Arizona, you want to say, I want to help my community college develop a program. Now it is very easy. There is a blueprint,
right.
right? And Houston Community College will be happy to share whatever they need to know to make it happen. At the end of the day, educators are here to educate.
Right.
It's now very easy to do that. And the second thing is the whole program, educational program that we developed, we gave it to the community college for free, right?
Right.
And we want others to use that material and benefit from that.
Absolutely. That's well, congratulations on that. I mean, I think that's that's one of the more fascinating things that we've heard. You mentioned that ASGE is going to be doing something with
Yes.
training.
Yeah. I think, if you think about ASGE, right, we just celebrated a few years ago 80-year history. And we have actually until now spent a lot of time and resources. The society has spent a lot of time and resources in training for endoscopists, as either fellows or after fellowship, different things. And also, she has been responsible for pushing the boundary, right, developing the members of the society. But along the way, what's happening is we are all suffering because if you don't have the right team, you can't do this in the long run.
Right.
So you lose a trained technician, you're stuck. So the leadership has actually, the governing board took a big decision 2 years ago to create associate membership for technicians. So all my technicians from MD Anderson joined ASGE as associate members. And I think the membership is like $100 per year or something like that, right? And I want to also share here that my president, Dr. Pistos, approved us to give the entire learning material that we developed for the community college to the ASGE as well.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
so ASGE has built a separate website just for the technicians, and they
Wow.
have access to all the learning material. All the lesson plans, all the videos, everything is there. And for the last 2 years, what we have done is a group of us got together and created a question bank, about 400 questions plus, to develop the ASGE tech certification.
Okay.
So that the society comes up with a certification. And we are right now basically testing, right? You have to do a lot of pilot tests to figure out how that test is working. And we have already deployed it to the first batch of the community college students. And they did okay, not the best, not the best. Partly because they didn't. They were tested after several months after they graduated. Once you graduate, your material, The second batch that graduated in May from the community college, 100% of them passed. The pass mark is 75%, so all of them passed.
Okay.
Right? And we're also the society wants later this year or maybe in the near future want to create a national certification so that the techs get recognized. Right now there is no recognition. If you go to your HR and say, I have this fine fantastic tech, this guy is going to go to McDonald's to work, I want to keep him, the HR says, I can't help you because I can't see a certificate that I can
Right.
hang my hat on, right?
Right.
This ASGE certificate may be helpful. I think that is something we all need to do. How do we are helpless when we lose a technician, just
100%.
right. It's
So do you see this ASG national certificate replacing a community college education, or do you see that being both things have to be done? How do you envision this kind of playing out in the future?
So the thing is, there are a couple of things, right? This is an area that we are slowly trying to develop, right? And I wish I could say, hey, I know the future.
Right.
Uh, the reason to uh, share everything with ASC is, ASC is the premier society. We all are connected to ASC one way or the other. And it's much easier for the central society to have access to the material so that the members could benefit.
Right.
Right. It's much easier because they all connect with ASG, and the ASG can say, hey, these are the resources. If you leave it in the community college, it's very hard for our members, right? The second one is right now, all the students of the community college, once they finish, they also take the ASC certificate test so that they have something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that the society and our members actually work together to give recognition to the technician for the skills that they bring to the table so that they are compensated for the skills that they bring to the table. Right now, we have no way to do that.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's a double-edged sword, right? If you look at the business aspect of medicine, I mean, I think from all of us want our hospital technicians to be certified because you want the hospital to compensate them appropriately. But on the flip side, for people who own ambulatory surgical centers, that's an added cost to them. That if you have a certified technician, and it may turn out that you end up with two pathways. You go a non-certified job, but then you live with the fact that you won't have people for more than 6 months to a year, or everybody gets certified. But I don't think there'll be resistance. I just think it's an interesting kind of thing to consider.
Right. So actually, it's very interesting that you share that thought. To me, I don't know the right answer, but I feel that having somebody who knows what he's doing and is happy that he's getting compensated well and is not looking for a job the moment he comes to your job, to your facility, is a big plus.
Agreed.
And I want to share with you also this. A lot of times we don't realize how much of wastage is there in the endoscopy unit because the guy picks up the wrong instrument. He opens, it's $200 gone.
Yeah.
And I didn't share this at the DDW talk. I know because of time constraints. The 3 weeks before I gave the talk, one of the graduates of the community college, her name is Miss Dang, sharpest graduates, and she worked for the first time, do a large EMR, and the procedure went as if I was working with a very seasoned technician.
Right.
And it's also interesting that I said, okay, let's do the APC. Right, I do the APC of the edges routinely. And she said, what type of catheter do you need? She didn't just pick up whatever is there.
Right. She knew to ask.
Right. Because I've actually had times when somebody picked up a side-firing APC catheter, which is not ideal for APC of the edges.
Right.
And that is $300. I don't know how much is an APC catheter, $300, $400. It's
Right.
just you cannot use it again.
No. Or,
Right.
or when you have a technician open the wrong metal stent for an ERCP,
Right. Right.
that's a $2,000 mess up. So
But the other thing is, I'll put it this way, is we all compensated quite a bit for not having enough well-trained people around us. Physicians to compensate, right? They can still get the job done because they compensate for certain things. But there is an amount of unmeasured stress when you're trying to compensate for somebody's weaknesses. Because
100%.
you have to focus on not only this, you have to focus on your right hand, which is a little bit on the weak side.
Right.
Right. Versus you have a exceptionally trained technician, you're like on a cruise mode. From
Your life is super easy with a wonderful
question is, what's the price we pay for that, right?
Right. 100%. And I think it's, I agree with you, because I do think we have to have this certification, and I think we want standard, for patient care, we want standardization. And then for these people who are doing this, you want them to be compensated to the same that somebody with a degree in surgical technology or technician upstairs or in the OR is doing, because like you said at the very beginning, endoscopy is surgery, and with all the developments, we need people who can really give us that quality that they're getting at the OR. And I think I think we have to do this, and I think we need to support it. And I'll be very interested in looking up through the ASGEs how that progresses, because I think it's something that we all who participate should be bringing this locally to our cities.
One thing I notice is I want to hear your thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say, for example, right now we have quite a few turnover of technicians, to the point that we're working with travel techs.
Yeah.
Okay. And the travel tech has some basic skill set, not necessarily the skill set that you would like to have in your technician, because they're not exposed to. They're exposed to a certain amount of type of practices.
Right.
And it's when somebody new comes to your lab, you have to put in a lot of resources to train that person. Right
Yep.
now, the model is you have to put in 6 weeks or whatever time to train a technician. Right. And we are having a problem of a rapid turnover.
Right.
Every place across the country there's turnover. Every place.
Right.
Okay. If you say, hey, I want, and there is a cost to that we really we have not measured yet. Right. On the other hand, if we invest and make sure that the people are fully trained and ready to work, there's a big difference.
100%.
The other thing is, like, if you are, say, for example, you are a busy endoscopist, right? You expect the hospital and endoscopy center to give you the right team to do the job, right? You don't have time to sit down and teach them. Right? You don't have time to teach them.
Right.
And when you can't teach them, they can be with you for 5 years, but they don't understand why the heck they're doing whatever they're doing.
Right.
But having an education to learn why they're doing whatever, some of them are very smart. They're smarter than physicians, right? They can actually play a big role.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think, we don't know what the cost is, because you're right, it hasn't been measured. But if I think through my personal experience when I've had a untrained tech or a new tech, I'm probably doing 2 or 3 less cases a day. Probably number one, maybe I'm doing an ERCP and the technician is new and they're not really up to par or up to snuff, as they say. And maybe if it's an unsuccessful ERCP, I'm not spending the extra 30 minutes to get into the bowel. Like maybe I'm quitting earlier because I know that tomorrow or the day after I'll have a trained technician. Right. So that's one. Right. And I think when they're not able to set up the scopes efficiently, especially on inpatient side, the team needs to go home by a certain time. And, if it's a simple colonoscopy or EGD that could be safely pushed to the next day in the interest of getting everybody home, I think that would happen at least 1 or 2 cases if you have somebody slowing you down because they don't know what to do. And then we forget that when a technician is new and you ask them, say, give me a rat tooth forceps, right? They may not know what that means. And then they have to run out the room, find somebody because they're scared to ask the doctor or anybody in the room. So they have to go find the other technician. A, what is a rat tooth forceps? B, where is a rat tooth forceps? C, how do I use it? And that in itself adds 5 minutes to a simple procedure. So I think there's definitely lost time and lost procedural volume. So I think, if you have a standardized training like you're mentioning, then, just like tomorrow, if if I take a locum job and I decide to go work in a small city in Arizona or Texas, the hospital won't notice a huge difference in terms of EGDs and colonoscopies because what the previous guy and what I'm doing are very similar. And I think the same thing would apply that if a technician leaves from me and goes work somewhere else, they should be able to walk in on day one after getting an orientation to where everything, the map of the center, and be able to do exactly what your previous technician did, maybe with small variations, but I think that's what it should be. And that's why I agree with you. Standardization is where we have to go.
Right. I think we as the members of the Endoscopy Society, when I say as gastroenterologists, as endoscopists, we have the responsibility of putting in the time and resources and effort to build our teams.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times, when you are a therapeutic endoscopy fellow, you probably had the best technicians working in the advanced endoscopy center.
Oh yeah.
When you go out, you may not have the same type of personnel assisting.
No, it's very true, and and it's not that you're getting bad people at your new place. It's just that you're getting undertrained people, but it makes your life, your cannulation rate doesn't drop from whatever 90+% to 80% because you're a bad endoscopist. It's a team effort. It's your technician. It could also be your anesthesia. It could be everything there, but there is a drop off when you leave and I hate this term, but people use it, the ivory towers, and you go into the community, so. But
actually, I want to share one thing. It's very interesting comment that my good friend Suresh Shari made just last week. He said, I was working with this top-notch technician, and this is something that I've not done recently. And she actually helped me get the procedure done successfully. And he said, an excellent endoscopist can work with a weak technician, can get the job done. And an excellent technician can also help a relatively weak endoscopist get the job.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So it's a team, one complements the other.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's a Saturday for anybody who's interested in knowing. So just to be able to dedicate this much time to me, I'm super appreciative, and thank you so much for that. Before we end the podcast, a couple of things that I routinely say at the end of each of my podcasts. Number one is, and I think your talk highlights the importance of this. If you're not a member of ASGE or any of the societies, really get involved, join, volunteer, serve them, and help make a difference for everything that we do. And then the final thing is, I always say something about mental health is, there's always, every week, there's a physician suicide in the United States. And so if you are struggling, please reach out to your friends, colleagues, family, and just, try to work through those issues and get help. So, and with that, thank you, everybody. That's the episode of the Interventional Endoscopist podcast, and this will be available both on YouTube and podcast form. So thank you so much.